The fluorescent lights in the dispatch center buzzed like dying insects, casting a sickly yellow glow over the rows of scooters parked outside. I could smell the mixture of gasoline, exhaust fumes, and the greasy aroma of 100 different cuisines that clung to my uniform like a second skin. My fingers ached as I gripped the handlebars of my battered delivery scooter, the vibration from the engine traveling up my arms and settling into my bones. 12 hours. I'd been on the road for 12 hours, and my shift wasn't even close to done. "Emma, you're up!" Marcus, the dispatch manager, shouted across the warehouse floor, his voice cutting through the constant chatter of drivers arguing over routes and orders. I wiped the sweat from my forehead with the back of my hand, leaving a smudge of dirt across my skin. 23 years old, and this was my life. Weaving through traffic, racing against impossible delivery windows, surviving on energy drinks, and the occasional stolen fry from someone's order. Not that I'd ever actually steal. I couldn't afford to lose this job. Not with Mom's medical bills piling up like accusatory letters on our kitchen table. "Where to?" I called back, already knowing it would be somewhere across the city, somewhere that would take 40 minutes, but I'd have 20 to get there. Marcus squinted at his tablet, his face illuminated by the blue glow. "High-rise on 7th, penthouse suite. Big order from that new Italian place, Ricci's." My stomach dropped. 7th Avenue meant the business district, the part of the city where people like me only existed to serve people like them. The buildings there touched the clouds, all glass and steel and money. I'd delivered there before, sliding through service entrances while security guards looked through me like I was invisible, their eyes glazing over my oil-stained uniform and helmet hair. "Got it," I said, swallowing the exhaustion that threatened to pull me under. The order was massive. 3 insulated bags worth of food that probably cost more than my entire month's rent. I secured them carefully to the back of my scooter, double-checking the straps, because I couldn't afford a single spill, a single complaint. One bad review, and Marcus would have me on graveyard shifts for a month. The city streets were a nightmare of evening traffic, cars honking, pedestrians darting between vehicles like they had a death wish. I wove through gaps that shouldn't exist, my heart hammering against my ribs with each near miss. The sky above was turning that peculiar shade of purple-gray that meant rain, and I could smell it in the air, that electric, metallic scent that promised a storm. By the time I reached the high-rise, my uniform was soaked through with sweat despite the cooling evening air. The building loomed above me, all reflective glass that showed me my own pathetic reflection. Small, disheveled, utterly out of place. I took the service entrance, as always, my footsteps echoing in the concrete stairwell because the freight elevator was broken again. The penthouse was on the 42nd floor. My legs burned by the time I reached it, my breath coming in ragged gasps that I tried to suppress as I approached the private entrance. The hallway here was different. Plush carpet, soft lighting, the smell of expensive cologne and furniture polish. I pressed the doorbell, adjusting the bags in my arms, preparing my customer service smile even though my face felt like it might crack from exhaustion. The door opened. I'd expected a butler, maybe a personal assistant. What I got was a man in an impeccably tailored black suit, his expression as cold and sharp as a blade. He looked at me with dark eyes that seemed to calculate my worth in a fraction of a second, and find it severely lacking. "Delivery from Ricci's," I said, my voice smaller than I intended. He stepped aside without a word, gesturing for me to enter. The apartment beyond was obscene in its luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, marble floors that reflected the crystal chandeliers, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, and people. At least a dozen men in suits, all of them radiating that same dangerous energy, all of them turning to look at me as I stood there with my delivery bags like a child who'd wandered into the wrong room. "Kitchen's through there," the man said, his accent thick and unmistakably Italian. I nodded, keeping my eyes down as I crossed the cavernous living room. I could feel their stares like physical weights, could hear the conversations dying as I passed. My scooter keys jangled against my hip, absurdly loud in the sudden quiet. The kitchen was all marble and chrome, gleaming surfaces that had probably never seen actual cooking. I began unpacking the order on the massive island, my hands moving automatically through the familiar routine, pasta dishes in their containers, bread wrapped in paper that smelled heavenly, wine bottles that probably cost more than my scooter. That's when I heard the voice. It came from somewhere behind me, deeper than the others, carrying an authority that made the air itself seem to shift. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable, someone used to being obeyed without question. The system is down. Everything. I can't access files, can't communicate with the Eastern divisions, can't see the security feeds. Another voice, higher-pitched, stressed. We've tried everything, boss. The IT guy said it would take hours to fix, maybe days. I kept unpacking, trying to make myself even smaller, even more invisible. Whatever this was, it wasn't my business. Rich people problems. Probably some stock trading software or business files. Not my concern. Hours? That deep voice again, closer now. I have a meeting in 40 minutes that requires those files. I need confirmation on shipments that are arriving tonight. The voice cut off abruptly, and I felt, rather than saw someone enter the kitchen. The temperature seemed to drop. I finished placing the last container on the counter, reaching for my tablet to close out the order. You. The word was directed at me, sharp and commanding. I turned slowly, my heart suddenly racing for reasons I couldn't explain. The man standing in the kitchen doorway was nothing like I'd expected. He was younger than his voice suggested, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. His suit was black, perfectly fitted, and there was something about the way he held himself. Like a predator, deciding whether you were worth the effort of killing, but it was his eyes that froze me in place. Dark, intense, and currently fixed on me with an expression I couldn't read. "Yes, sir?" I managed, my customer service voice kicking in automatically. He moved closer, and I instinctively took a step back, my hip hitting the counter. Several of his men had followed him into the kitchen, forming a semicircle that made me feel like cornered prey. "You understand computers?" he asked, his accent turning the words into something almost musical despite their abruptness. I blinked, confused. I use the delivery app and... Marco. He didn't take his eyes off me, but one of the suited men stepped forward. "Show her." Marco, presumably the stressed voice from before, pulled out a laptop, opening it on the counter beside my delivery bags. The screen was a mess of error messages, frozen programs, and what looked like a completely crashed operating system. "Our entire network is down," Marco explained, his Italian accent thicker than his boss's. "Every system, every device. We can't access anything." I stared at the screen, my mind automatically analyzing the problem, even as my rational brain screamed at me to just leave, to say I couldn't help, to get out of this apartment full of dangerous men in expensive suits. But I'd built my first computer at 14, taught myself to code at 16. Before Mom got sick, before the medical bills, I'd had a scholarship to study computer science. That life felt like it belonged to someone else now, but the knowledge was still there, waiting. "It looks like a cascading system failure," I heard myself say, leaning closer to the screen. "Probably started with your network security software conflicting with something. Did you recently update anything?" The dangerous man, the boss, clearly, moved to stand directly beside me. I could smell his cologne now, expensive and dark, like leather and smoke, could feel the heat radiating from his body despite the expensive fabric between us. "Can you fix it?" he asked, his voice low and intense in a way that made my skin prickle. I should have said no, should have apologized, collected my tip if there was one, and fled back to my scooter and my normal, safe, exhausting life. Instead, I found myself nodding. Maybe. I'd need to access the root directory, restart the services in the right order. Probably rebuild some of the network protocols. Then do it. Not a request. A command. My hands were shaking as I reached for the laptop. This was insane. I was a delivery driver who happened to know about computers, not some professional IT consultant. But something in his voice, in the intensity of his stare, made refusing seem impossible. I worked quickly, my fingers moving across the keyboard with muscle memory that surprised me. The kitchen had fallen completely silent, except for the soft clicking of keys and my own breathing, which sounded too loud in my ears. I could feel them all watching me, the boss especially, standing so close I could count his breaths. Command prompt. system services, network diagnostics. The problems unfolded before me like a puzzle, each solution leading to the next challenge. 10 minutes passed. 15. My fingers flew, and slowly, impossibly, the systems began responding. "Try accessing your files now," I said quietly, not looking up from the screen. I heard movement, multiple devices being checked, then Marco's voice, filled with disbelief. "It's working. Everything's coming back online." I finally looked up, finding the boss staring at me with an expression that made my breath catch. It wasn't gratitude exactly. It was something more intense, more dangerous. Like I'd just become the most interesting thing in his world, and I wasn't sure if that was good or terrifying. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Emma," I whispered. "Emma Clark." He smiled then, and it transformed his face from stone to something devastatingly handsome and infinitely more dangerous. "Emma Clark, the delivery girl who fixes impossible problems." He reached past me, his arm brushing mine, and pulled a wallet from his inside jacket pocket. My heart hammered as he extracted several bills, hundreds, I realized with shock, and held them out to me. "For the delivery," he said. Then he pulled out more bills. "And for your skills." I stared at the money. It was more than I made in a month, maybe 2 months. "That's too much," I started, but his hand closed around mine, pressing the bills into my palm. His skin was warm, his grip firm but not painful. "Take it," he said. "You've earned it." I should have taken the money and run, should have thanked him and disappeared back into my anonymous life. But as I stood there, his hand still wrapped around mine, his dark eyes holding me captive, I felt something shift in the air between us. "Sir," one of the men interrupted. "Your meeting is in 20 minutes." The boss's jaw tightened, and he released my hand slowly, almost reluctantly. "Of course." I shoved the money into my pocket with trembling fingers, gathering my empty delivery bags. "Thank you. I need to get back." "Marco," the boss said, not looking away from me. "Get her information, all of it." My blood turned cold. "What? Why?" He stepped closer, and I found myself backed against the counter again, trapped between cold marble and warm, dangerous man. "Because I may need your services again," he said softly. "And because I don't like loose ends." The words should have terrified me. They did terrify me, but they also sent a strange thrill down my spine that I didn't want to examine too closely. "I'm just a delivery driver," I said weakly. "No." His voice was certain, absolute. "You're much more than that, Emma Clark, and now you're mine to protect." Before I could process what that meant, what he meant, Marco was there with a tablet, asking for my address, my phone number, details I gave automatically while my mind spun in circles. Then I was being escorted out, still clutching my empty bags, my pocket heavy with more money than I'd seen in years. The boss watched me go, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, those dark, intense eyes, never leaving my face. The door closed behind me with a soft click that sounded like a prison cell locking. I stood in the hallway, my heart racing, my hands shaking, the money burning a hole in my pocket. I just fixed a computer for what was clearly a very dangerous, very powerful man, a man who now had all my personal information, a man who'd called me his to protect. What the hell had I just done? I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, those dark, calculating eyes that had looked at me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. The money sat on my nightstand, the bills fanned out like evidence of a crime I wasn't sure I'd committed. $3,000. For fixing a computer and delivering pasta. Nobody paid $3,000 for that unless there was something else going on. Mom was asleep in the next room, her breathing raspy through the thin walls of our apartment. I could hear the neighbor's television through the floor, smell the remnants of the cheap ramen I'd eaten for dinner mixing with the mold that grew persistently in the corner near the window, no matter how many times I scrubbed it. This was my life. Small, cramped, suffocating in its ordinariness and struggle. And yet, for a few minutes in that penthouse, I'd felt something different. Seen, valued, terrified, yes, but also somehow alive in a way I hadn't been in years. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, the screen illuminating the dark room. Unknown number. My heart jumped into my throat as I reached for it. Unknown. You forgot your tip for the delivery itself. I'll have it sent to your address. Sleep well, Emma Clark. My fingers hovered over the screen, trembling. How did he have my personal number? Marco had taken my information, but I'd given him my work contact. Not. Another message appeared before I could finish the thought. Unknown. And yes, I have your personal number. I have everything. It's what I do. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. As if fear was a choice, when a man who could access any information he wanted, who commanded rooms full of dangerous men with a single word, told you not to worry. I typed back before I could stop myself. Who are you? The response came immediately, as if he'd been waiting. Unknown. Someone who appreciates rare skills. Someone who protects what's valuable to him. Sleep, Emma. You're safe. I stared at that message until the screen went dark, my reflection ghost-like in the black glass. Safe. The word should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a promise and a threat wrapped together, inseparable. The next morning arrived with the harsh buzz of my alarm at 5 a.m. My body ached as I dragged myself out of bed, every muscle protesting yesterday's endless deliveries and the tension that had coiled through me in that penthouse. The money was still on the nightstand, too real to have been a dream. I shoved it into my pillowcase before Mom could see it. She'd ask questions I couldn't answer, worry in ways that would make the lines around her eyes deepen. Besides, I needed to think about what to do with it. Pay the hospital bills? Fix our leaking roof? Buy medication she'd been rationing because we couldn't afford full doses? The dispatch center was already chaos when I arrived, Marcus shouting orders over the morning crowd of drivers. I slipped through to my scooter, keeping my head down, hoping for a normal day of normal deliveries to normal people who wouldn't turn my world sideways with a single look. Clark. Marcus's voice cut through the noise. You got a personal request. I froze, my hand on my helmet. What? He waved me over to his desk, his expression puzzled. Some high roller from last night. Left a note saying he wants you specifically for any future deliveries to his address. Even paid a premium to ensure you're available. He squinted at me suspiciously. What did you do up there? Sleep with the guy? Heat flooded my face. No, I helped him with something technical, that's all. Uh-huh. Marcus didn't look convinced, but he shrugged. Well, whatever you did, keep doing it. Guy left a tip that was more than your monthly salary. Management's happy, which means I'm happy, which means you get better routes this week. My stomach twisted. He was already changing my life, rearranging things without asking, without permission. Part of me wanted to refuse, to demand Marcus assign me anywhere else. But the sensible part, the part that counted every dollar, that knew exactly how many shifts it took to cover Mom's medication, kept my mouth shut. The day passed in a blur of deliveries, Thai food to an office building, pizza to a college dorm, Chinese takeout to an elderly woman who always tried to tip me in hard candies and stories about her grandchildren. Normal, safe, boring. My phone stayed silent. By the time my shift ended at 7 p.m., I'd almost convinced myself that last night had been an aberration, a strange moment that wouldn't repeat. I'd take the money, use it for good, and never think about dark eyes and dangerous smiles again. Then I saw the car. It was parked outside the dispatch center, sleek and black and so obviously expensive that other drivers were giving it a wide berth. The windows were tinted dark enough to be illegal, and even from a distance, I could tell it was armored, the kind of vehicle that screamed power and danger and money. The back door opened as I approached, and my feet stopped moving of their own accord. Miss Clark. It was Marco, not the boss, thank God, stepping out and gesturing politely to the interior. Mr. Andretti requests your presence, just for a moment of your time. Mr. Andretti. Now I had a name for the man who'd invaded my thoughts all day. I can't, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I have to get home. My mom... It won't take long, Marco insisted, his politeness edged with something harder. And Mr. Andretti doesn't like to be refused. I glanced around, but none of my coworkers were paying attention, or maybe they were pretending not to, which was worse. My fingers clutched my helmet so hard the plastic creaked. 5 minutes. I heard myself say. The interior of the car was even more excessive than the penthouse. Leather seats that probably cost more than my entire apartment, a minibar, privacy screen between us and the driver. And there, sitting with the casual confidence of someone who owned the world, was Dante Andretti. He looked different in the dim interior lighting, less like carved stone and more like flesh and blood, though no less dangerous. His suit today was charcoal gray, his tie loosened slightly at the collar in a way that made him seem almost approachable. Almost. "Emma," he said, my name rolling off his tongue with that accent that did strange things to my pulse. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with me." Did I have a choice? The words came out sharper than I intended, fear making me bold. His lips curved into something that might have been amusement. Always. "I may be many things, but I don't force women into cars against their will." He gestured to the seat across from him. "Please." "Sit." I sat, perching on the edge of the seat, ready to flee. My scooter helmet rested in my lap like a shield. "I wanted to thank you properly," he continued, reaching for a briefcase beside him. "Last night, you saved me from a considerable disaster. The systems you restored contained information critical to several business operations. Time-sensitive information that would have cost me millions if delayed." "It was just a computer problem," I said, though we both knew it was more than that. It was more than that. He opened the briefcase, and my breath caught. Inside were stacks of bills, neatly arranged. "This is $50,000. Consider it a proper consultation fee." The world tilted. 50,000. I could pay off Mom's medical debt, could quit this job and go back to school, could breathe for the first time in 3 years. "I can't accept that," I whispered, even as my fingers itched to reach for it. "Why not?" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, studying me with those intense eyes. "You earned it. Your skill saved my business. In my world, such things are compensated appropriately. In your world." I forced myself to meet his gaze. "What world is that exactly?" Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, that I'd asked, that I'd pushed back. "Import and export," he said smoothly. "International business. Nothing that concerns you. Except it does concern me if you're paying me $50,000 for fixing a computer crash." I was trembling now, but I couldn't stop. Normal businessmen don't have apartments full of armed guards. They don't have cars like this. They don't... I gestured helplessly. "Whatever this is, I don't want to be part of it." Silence filled the car, heavy and dangerous. I'd overstepped. I knew it the moment the words left my mouth. Men like Dante Andretti didn't get challenged by delivery girls in oil-stained uniforms, but instead of anger, I saw something else cross his face. Respect, perhaps. Or intrigue. "You're right," he said finally, surprising me. "I'm not a normal businessman, but the money is real, earned through your legitimate skill, and it comes with no strings attached." He closed the briefcase, pushing it toward me. "Take it. Use it for your mother's medical bills. Yes, I know about those too. Use it to better your life. Consider it an investment in potential." "Potential for what?" "For you." He stood, and in the confined space of the car, he seemed even larger, more imposing. "I see people, Emma. I see what they can become, what they're capable of. And you. You're wasting yourself delivering food when you could be so much more." He moved past me to open the door, and I caught that scent again. Leather and smoke and expensive cologne. "The money is yours, no conditions. But I would like to make you an offer. Come work for me. Legitimate work, managing my security systems, overseeing IT operations. 6-figure salary, benefits, all legal and above board." The night air rushed in, cool against my overheated skin. "Why?" "Because talent should be nurtured, not squandered." He held out his hand to help me from the car, and after a moment's hesitation, I took it. His grip was firm, warm, sending electricity up my arm. "Think about it. You have my number. When you're ready to stop running from your potential, call me." I stood on the sidewalk, briefcase in one hand, helmet in the other, watching as the car pulled away into traffic. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped everything. $50,000, a job offer that could change my life. And a man who saw through all my defenses to the person I used to be, the person I'd buried under exhaustion and poverty and fear. I should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt trapped, like I'd just stepped into a snare disguised as salvation. My phone buzzed. Dante, the offer expires in 1 week. Use the money regardless of your decision. You've earned it. Dante, and Emma, you're wrong about one thing. You're already part of my world. You have been since you walked into my home. The only question is whether you'll embrace it or run from it. I stared at the message, my heart hammering against my ribs. He was right, and that terrified me more than anything else. I was already his. I just didn't know what that meant yet. I took the money home that night, the briefcase burning like a brand against my side as I rode my scooter through the darkening streets. Every traffic light felt like an accusation. Every pedestrian's glance like they could see what I was carrying, what I'd accepted from a man whose world I didn't understand. Mom was awake when I got home, sitting in her worn armchair with the oxygen tank hissing softly beside her. The sound had become background noise in our lives, constant as breathing, which, ironically, was exactly what it helped her do. Her face lit up when she saw me, the way it always did, like I was something precious instead of a daughter who'd dropped out of school to keep her alive. "You're late, sweetheart," she said, her voice raspy but warm. "I saved you some soup." I set the briefcase down carefully behind the door, my jacket draped over it. "I'm not hungry, Mom. How are you feeling?" "Oh, you know me. Tough as nails." She smiled, but I could see the exhaustion in the lines around her eyes, the way her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted her oxygen tube. "There's a letter from the hospital on the table." I didn't open it, because she knew what it would say. Another bill. Another reminder of the debt that grew faster than I could pay it down. Compound interest on borrowed life. I picked up the envelope, my stomach knotting, but for the first time in 3 years, I felt something else underneath the dread. Hope, maybe, or the possibility of it. "Mom," I said slowly, turning the envelope over in my hands, "what if I told you I got a job offer? A real one, with good money." Her face transformed, hope and fear mixing together. "Emma, you didn't do anything." "No." I cut her off quickly, understanding what she was asking. "Nothing like that. I helped someone with a computer problem, and they were impressed. They want to hire me for IT work, legitimate work. It wasn't a complete lie, just an edited version, leaving out the armed guards and the car that screamed danger, and the way Dante Andretti looked at me like I was something he'd decided to collect. Oh, sweetheart." Tears welled in her eyes. "That's wonderful. That's what you should have been doing all along, using that brilliant mind of yours instead of driving around on that death trap." I moved to her chair, kneeling beside it, taking her thin hand in mine. "I haven't decided yet. It's complicated. But I want you to know that things might change. Good changes." She cupped my face with her free hand, her palm cool and papery against my cheek. "You've already given up so much for me. If this is what you want, take it. Don't let me be the reason you stay small. Stay small." The words echoed Dante's assessment of my wasted potential, and I wondered if everyone could see how much of myself I'd carved away to survive. That night, I opened the briefcase in the privacy of my room. The money was real. Crisp hundreds, wrapped in bands. $50,000 that smelled like possibility and danger in equal measure. I counted it twice, my hands shaking, then hid it in 3 different places around my room. Under the mattress, in the back of my closet, inside an old textbook, as if spreading it out would make it less real, less compromising. My phone lay on my bed, Dante's messages glowing like a dare. I should have deleted his number. Should have taken the money and disappeared, found some way to refuse the job offer that would pull me deeper into his orbit. Instead, I found myself typing, "What exactly would the job entail?" The response came within seconds, like he'd been waiting. "Dante, meet me tomorrow. 2 p.m. I'll send a car. Me. I have work. Dante, I've already cleared it with your supervisor. 2 p.m. Emma, don't make me wait." I stared at the message, anger and something else warring in my chest. He'd called my boss. had arranged my schedule without asking, manipulating my life with the casual ease of someone used to controlling everything around him. I should have been furious. I was furious. But underneath the anger was a thrill I didn't want to acknowledge. A dark curiosity about what it would be like to stop fighting, to let someone else make decisions, to surrender to the inevitability that had been building since I'd first met his eyes. Me. Fine. But this doesn't mean I'm accepting the job. Dante. Of course not. It just means you're smart enough to hear the offer before deciding. I'll see you tomorrow, Emma. Wear something other than your uniform. I'm taking you somewhere nice. The car arrived exactly at 2 p.m., pulling up outside our apartment building with the kind of precision that spoke of military training or obsessive control. Probably both. Marco stepped out, his expression professionally neutral as he opened the back door. Miss Clark, you look lovely. I'd agonized over what to wear, finally settling on the only dress I owned that wasn't for funerals, a simple navy blue sheath that I'd bought for a scholarship interview 3 years ago. It was slightly too big now, my body having shed weight I couldn't afford to lose, but it was clean and modest and made me feel slightly less like I was walking into a trap. Where are we going? I asked as I slid into the car, relieved to find it empty of Dante's overwhelming presence. Mr. Andretti is waiting at one of his properties. A restaurant. Marco's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. May I offer some advice, Miss Clark? I nodded, my throat too tight for words. Mr. Andretti is a man of intense passions. When he decides something is valuable, he protects it, guards it. Sometimes that protection can feel overwhelming. He pulled into traffic smoothly, but he is a man of honor. If he makes you a promise, he will keep it. If he offers you his protection, you are safer than you would be anywhere else in this city. And if I don't want his protection? Marco's expression in the mirror was almost pitying. Then I would suggest you should have thought of that before fixing his computers, Miss Clark. Mr. Andretti doesn't let go of things he considers his, and make no mistake, the moment you stepped into his home, you became his to protect. The words sent ice through my veins, but before I could respond, we were pulling up to a restaurant I'd passed 100 times on deliveries, but never imagined entering. Ricci's, the place where yesterday's order had originated. Of course, he owned it. Probably owned half the businesses I delivered to. The lunch rush was over, and the restaurant was nearly empty. Dante sat at a corner table, the lighting perfect to highlight the sharp angles of his face, the expensive cut of his suit. 2 men in black stood at discreet distances, trying and failing to look like normal diners. He stood as I approached, and I was struck again by how he moved, like a predator, all controlled power and coiled danger. Emma. He pulled out my chair, the gesture at odds with everything else about him. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? I sat, my hands clasped in my lap to hide their trembling. Always. He settled across from me, and a waiter appeared immediately with wine, pouring without asking if I wanted it. But I'm glad you chose to be here. The restaurant smelled incredible, garlic and basil and fresh bread, scents that made my stomach growl embarrassingly loud. I couldn't remember the last time I'd eaten something that wasn't microwaved or grabbed between deliveries. Tell me about yourself, Dante said, his dark eyes fixed on my face with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. Beyond what my investigators found. Tell me who Emma Clark really is. You had me investigated? The words came out sharp, but he didn't even flinch. Of course. I don't make job offers to strangers. He leaned back, swirling his wine. I know you dropped out of university 3 years ago, when your mother was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. I know you'd had a full scholarship to study computer science at MIT. I know you work 16-hour days, 6 days a week, and that you've never once been late with a delivery. I know your father left when you were 12, and you haven't heard from him since. I know you take care of everything, carry everything alone. Each fact felt like a strip of my skin being peeled away, exposing raw vulnerability. Then why ask me to tell you? Because facts aren't truth. He set down his glass, leaning forward. I want to know what you dream about when you're too exhausted to move. What you would do if money wasn't an object. What scares you more than anything else in the world. The waiter brought food, Pasta that looked like art, vegetables that smelled like summer, bread still steaming from the oven. I stared at it, overwhelmed. "I dream about sleep," I said finally, surprising myself with the honesty. "Real sleep. More than 4 hours at a time. I dream about my mom breathing easily. About not checking prices before putting items in my cart. About finishing the degree I started." I met his eyes, defiant. "And what scares me most? Men who think they can own people with money and power and carefully worded offers." Silence stretched between us, dangerous and electric. Then Dante smiled, and it was like watching dawn break over something dark and vast. "Good," he said softly. "Fear keeps you smart, but Emma, I don't want to own you. I want to unleash you. There's a difference." "Is there?" I picked up my fork, more to have something to do with my hands than from hunger. "You've manipulated my schedule, investigated my life, sent cars to collect me. You've inserted yourself into my world without permission. That sounds like ownership to me. It sounds like protection." His voice dropped lower, more intense. "This city is dangerous, Emma. More dangerous than you know. And you walked into the middle of something the other night. Saw things, learned things. That makes you a liability to some people and a target to others." Ice slid down my spine. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that the systems you repaired contained information that certain parties would kill to access. I'm saying that there are people who now know a delivery girl has the skills to breach my security, who might see you as a tool or a threat." He reached across the table, his hand covering mine before I could pull away. "I'm saying that whether you take the job or not, you're already in danger. And I would rather you be in danger under my protection than alone." His hand was warm, his grip firm but not painful. I should have pulled away. Instead, I found myself staring at where our skin touched, at the contrast between his manicured nails and my bitten ones, his smooth olive skin and my work-roughened fingers. "Why do you care?" I whispered. "I'm nobody. Just a girl who delivered your food. You're somebody who sees patterns others miss, who has a gift you've buried under necessity, who looks at me without flinching even though you're terrified." His thumb traced small circles on the back of my hand, and my breath caught. "You're somebody I want on my side, Emma. Somebody I would protect with everything I have. Because of my computer skills, because of who you are." He released my hand slowly, and I felt the absence like a cold wind. "Eat. Then I'll show you what I'm offering. The job, the salary, the life you could have. And then you'll decide." I ate because refusing seemed petty, and because the food was the best thing I'd tasted in years, and because I needed something to do while my mind spun in circles. Dante watched me the entire time, not eating much himself, his expression unreadable, but his attention absolute. It should have been uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable, but it was also intoxicating, having someone's complete focus, being seen as something other than invisible. After lunch, we took his car deeper into the business district, pulling up to a glass tower that reflected the afternoon sun like a mirror. Dante's hand was at the small of my back as we entered, a touch that felt possessive and protective in equal measure, guiding me past security guards who nodded respectfully, past other business people who moved out of our way automatically. The elevator required a key card to access the top floors. Of course it did. "This is my legitimate business," Dante explained as we rose. "Security consulting, data management, IT infrastructure for international corporations. Everything legal, everything above board." "And the other business?" I couldn't help asking. His smile was sharp. "I don't discuss that business in elevators, or with people who haven't agreed to work for me." The top floor was another world. Sleek offices, glass walls, people working at computers with multiple monitors, the hum of serious money and serious power. Dante led me through to a corner office with a view that stretched across the entire city, and I realized with a start that I could see my apartment building from here, small and shabby and impossibly far away. "This would be your office," he said, gesturing to the space. "Your team would consist of 15 people initially, all skilled, all loyal. Your salary would be $200,000 annually, plus bonuses based on performance. Full benefits, including medical coverage for you and your mother, the best doctors, private care, whatever she needs. 200,000. My mind couldn't even process the number. It was everything. It was salvation. It was too good to be true. What's the catch? I turned to face him and realized he'd moved closer, close enough that I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. There's always a catch. The catch, he said softly, is that you would be mine, Emma. Not owned, but protected, valued, guarded. I would know where you are, who you're with, that you're safe, always. His hand came up to cup my jaw, and I froze. The catch is that once you're mine, I don't let go. I don't share. I don't compromise. Can you accept that? His touch was gentle, almost reverent, but the words were chains wrapped in silk. That sounds like ownership, I breathed. That sounds like how I care for things that matter to me. His thumb brushed my lower lip, and heat flooded through me despite every rational thought screaming danger. And you matter, Emma Clark. More than you should. More than is wise. But there it is. I should have stepped back. Should have told him this was insane. That I couldn't work for a man who looked at me like he wanted to swallow me whole. Who spoke of possession like it was tenderness. But God help me. Part of me wanted to step closer. To lean into that dangerous warmth. To stop fighting and surrender to the inevitable. I need time, I managed, my voice barely audible. To think, to decide. You have until the end of the week. His hand dropped away, and I could breathe again. But Emma, the protection starts now, whether you take the job or not. There are already men watching your apartment, ensuring you're safe. Consider it a gift, non-negotiable. You can't just... I can. I have. He stepped back, his expression hardening into something more familiar. The dangerous man from the penthouse, the one who commanded with absolute authority. And you'll accept it because you're smart enough to understand that the alternative is worse. Go home, Emma. Think about your mother, about your future, about what you really want from life. Then call me with your decision. He walked me back to the elevator, his hand at my back again, that possessive touch that made me feel claimed and protected and utterly out of control. As the elevator doors closed, separating us, I saw him smile, dark and knowing and infinitely patient, like a predator who knew his prey was already caught. The week that followed felt like living in two different worlds simultaneously. In one world, I continued my deliveries, weaving through traffic on my dying scooter, hauling food to people who barely looked at me. Marcus gave me easier routes like he'd promised, but I could feel the other drivers' resentment, their whispered speculation about what I'd done to earn special treatment. I ignored them, kept my head down, counted down the hours until each shift ended. In the other world, the one that bled into my consciousness every time I closed my eyes, I was watched. Protected, Dante had said, but it felt like being studied under a microscope. I spotted them the second night, a black SUV parked across from our apartment building, windows tinted, engine running. Different car, same position every time I looked. When I walked to the corner store for Mom's medication, a man in a leather jacket followed at a distance, his casual window shopping fooling nobody. At first, it terrified me, then it infuriated me. By the third day, it had become almost comforting in a twisted way, knowing that if something happened, someone would respond, that I wasn't completely alone in this crumbling city that devoured people like me without a second thought. Mom noticed the change in me even though I tried to hide it. She'd catch me staring out the window at the SUV, or flinching when my phone buzzed with messages I couldn't explain. Dante texted me every day, nothing pushy, nothing demanding, just presence. Dante. Good morning. I hope you slept well. Dante. The hospital called about your mother's upcoming tests. I've arranged for Dr. Morrison to review her case. He's the best pulmonologist on the East Coast. Dante. There's a storm coming tonight. My men will ensure your building's entrance is clear. The landlord has been encouraged to fix the leak in your roof. Each message was another thread in a web I couldn't escape. Couldn't even be sure I wanted to escape. He was solving problems I hadn't asked him to solve, invading my life with the kind of benevolent dictatorship that made refusal seem churlish and ungrateful. On the fourth day, I came home to find Mom crying. Not sad tears, happy ones, the kind I hadn't seen since before her diagnosis. Emma, the most incredible thing happened. She was clutching a letter, her hands shaking. The hospital called. They said there's been a mistake in our billing, that we only owe a fraction of what they claimed. And there's a foundation, a medical foundation, that's agreed to cover the rest. All of it, sweetheart. The debt is gone. I didn't need to ask who was behind it. The knowledge settled in my stomach like a stone, heavy and undeniable. He'd erased my mother's medical debt. Tens of thousands of dollars. Disappeared with what was probably a single phone call. A check signed without thought to the amount. My phone buzzed. Dante. Before you call angry, this changes nothing about the job offer. Consider it payment for the initial consultation. Your mother deserves to breathe without the weight of debt crushing her. Now so do you. I called him. For the first time since that lunch, I initiated contact, my fingers shaking as I pressed his number. He answered on the first ring. Emma. You can't do this. My voice was tight, barely controlled. You can't pay off my mother's medical debt without asking me. I can, and I did. His voice was calm, infuriatingly reasonable. It was an investment in your peace of mind. How can you think clearly about your future when you're drowning in debt that should never have existed in the first place? That's not... You're manipulating me. You're backing me into a corner where I have no choice but to accept your offer because I'll feel obligated. Do you feel obligated? He cut me off. Or do you feel relieved? Be honest, Emma. For once, just be honest about what you want instead of what you think you should want. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words died in my throat because he was right. Underneath the anger and the fear and the resentment of being controlled, there was relief. Overwhelming, crushing relief that for the first time in 3 years, I could breathe without the suffocating weight of impossible debt. I hate that you're right, I whispered. I know. His voice softened, became almost gentle, but that doesn't make it less true. Emma, I'm not trying to trap you. I'm trying to free you. There's a difference, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it feels like you're rearranging my entire life to suit your purposes. My purpose is to see you reach your potential. To protect someone who has spent so long protecting everyone else that she's forgotten what it feels like to be protected. A pause, weighted with something I couldn't identify. Come to dinner tonight, my home, not a restaurant. Let me show you what I'm really offering. And if, after tonight, you still want to walk away, I'll respect that decision. No more interference, no more protection you don't want. Just the medical debt paid and the memory of what could have been. My heart hammered against my ribs. His home, private, intimate, away from public eyes and the thin veneer of professionalism we'd maintained so far. Just dinner? Just dinner and conversation. And honesty, Emma. No more walls. No more pretending this is just about a job offer. We both know it's more than that. I should have said no. Should have ended it right there, drawn a line he couldn't cross. What time? I heard myself ask. 7. I'll send Marco for you. I told Mom I was meeting with a potential employer, which was technically true. She fussed over my appearance, insisted I borrow her pearl earrings, the only valuable thing she'd kept from her previous life, before Dad left, before cancer, before everything fell apart. You look beautiful, sweetheart, she said, adjusting my hair. I'd worn the navy dress again, having nothing else appropriate. I hope this works out. You deserve something good. The guilt of her blessing, her hope that I was stepping into something positive rather than something dangerous, sat heavy in my chest as Marco's car pulled up exactly at 6:30. The drive took us out of my neighborhood, through progressively nicer areas until we reached a part of the city I'd only seen in magazines. Old money, inherited wealth, the kind of exclusivity that didn't need to announce itself. Dante's home was a 3-story brownstone on a tree-lined street, elegant and understated in a way that screamed more money than my mind could conceptualize. Security was everywhere but subtle. Men in suits at strategic positions, cameras hidden in tasteful fixtures, the kind of protection that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Dante met me at the door himself, and for the first time, I saw him without the armor of his suits. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, collar open. It made him look younger, more approachable, and somehow infinitely more dangerous because it felt like seeing something private, something not meant for public consumption. "Emma?" He took my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles in a gesture that sent electricity up my arm. "Thank you for coming." The interior of his home was nothing like the sterile luxury of the penthouse. This was lived-in wealth, antique furniture worn smooth by generations of use, artwork that belonged in museums but hung like family photos, Persian rugs softened by time. It smelled like old books and leather, and that cologne I'd come to associate with safety and danger in equal measure. He led me through to a private dining room where a table was set for two, candles casting warm light over crystal and china. No servants, no guards visible, just us and the intimate space between. "I sent everyone away," he said, reading my expression. "Tonight is just us. No pretense, no performance. I want you to see me, Emma. Not the businessman. Not the—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Not the man everyone else sees, just Dante." He pulled out my chair, and I sat, my heart racing as he settled across from me. Wine appeared, probably insanely expensive. And the first course materialized from a kitchen I assumed was just beyond the door. "Tell me something true," Dante said, his dark eyes fixed on mine. "Something you've never told anyone else." The request should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like an invitation to shed weight I'd been carrying too long. "Sometimes I resent her," I said quietly, surprised by my own honesty. "My mother. I love her desperately, would die for her. But sometimes I lie awake at night and think about what my life would have been if she hadn't gotten sick. If I'd finished my degree, if I'd had the chance to be something other than a delivery driver drowning in debt. And then I hate myself for thinking it, because she's the only family I have, and she's dying, and I'm a terrible person for wanting something different." Dante didn't look shocked or judgmental. He just nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something he already knew. "That doesn't make you terrible. It makes you human. Love and resentment aren't mutually exclusive, Emma. Neither are duty and desire. What about you?" I picked up my wine, needing something to do with my hands. "Tell me something true about Dante Andretti that isn't in the investigation file you compiled on me." His smile was sharp, appreciative. "Fair question." He leaned back, considering. "I'm terrified of being betrayed, not killed. That's an occupational hazard I've accepted. But betrayed by someone I trust, someone I've let close. It's happened before, and the person I was before that betrayal died even though my body survived. I rebuilt myself into someone harder, someone who trusts no one completely, until now. The weight of that admission hung in the air between us. Until now? Until you." He reached across the table, his hand palm up in invitation. I stared at the olive skin and strong fingers, and the implicit vulnerability of that open palm. "I don't know why. You walked into my home to deliver pasta and somehow became the most dangerous person in my life because you make me want to trust again, want to believe that not everyone will sell me out for the right price. You barely know me," I whispered. But I was placing my hand in his, feeling his fingers close around mine like a promise and a threat. "I know enough. I know you're brilliant and selfless and so used to carrying everything alone that the concept of sharing the burden feels like weakness. I know you're terrified right now, but you came anyway because underneath all that fear is curiosity and desire, and the same recognition I felt the moment our eyes met. This." He squeezed my hand gently, "this pull between us. You feel it too, don't you?" I wanted to lie, wanted to pull my hand away and pretend I didn't know exactly what he meant. But he'd asked for honesty, and after everything, he deserved it. "Yes," I admitted. "And it terrifies me more than anything else. Because men like you don't fall for girls like me, not really. This has to be about control or possession or something I don't understand yet. It can't be real." "Why not?" He stood, still holding my hand, pulling me up to face him. We were close now, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Why can't it be real that I saw someone extraordinary hidden under poverty and exhaustion? That I want to give you the world not to own you, but to see you flourish. That every time you push back against me, every time you question my motives, I want you more because you're not afraid to challenge me. His free hand came up to cup my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. I know what people say about men like me. That we take, we possess, we destroy. And maybe that's true for most things in my life. But Emma, with you, I want to build, want to protect and nurture, and watch you become everything you were meant to be before the world tried to crush you. And if I can't be what you want me to be, my voice was barely a whisper, then I'll love you anyway. The words fell between us like bombs, destroying any pretense that this was just about a job, just about obligation or debt. I know it's too soon. I know it's insane. But I stopped lying to myself 3 days ago when I realized I was checking my phone every 5 minutes hoping you'd texted, that I couldn't focus on anything because I was too busy making sure you were safe, that the thought of you going back to that dangerous job on that death trap scooter made me want to lock you in a room where nothing could hurt you. He was overwhelming me, his intensity like standing too close to a fire, burning and bright and impossible to look away from. That's not love. That's obsession. Maybe. His hand slid from my face to the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in my hair. Or maybe it's both. Maybe with people like us, people who feel too much, who've been hurt too deeply, love always has sharp edges and possessive undertones. I can't offer you soft and safe, Emma. I can only offer you everything I am, which is complicated and dangerous and fiercely, violently protective of what's mine. I'm not yours, I said. But even I could hear how weak the protest sounded. Not yet. His forehead touched mine, and I could feel his breath against my lips, warm and intimate. But you will be. Because this, whatever this is between us, you can't run from it any more than I can. And I think you're tired of running, tired of fighting alone, tired of being invisible. I see you, Emma, every brilliant, stubborn, beautiful part of you, and I'm not letting go. He should have kissed me then. The moment called for it, hung heavy with anticipation and desire. But instead, he stepped back, his hand sliding from my neck with obvious reluctance. But I won't push, he said, his voice rough. You need to come to me freely. Make the choice without coercion. So here's my final offer. Take the job. Move into the apartment I've already prepared for you. It's in a secure building, close to the office. Safe. Bring your mother. Get her the care she needs. Work for me. Let me protect you. See where this thing between us goes. No pressure for anything physical, no demands beyond your professional skills, just the opportunity to build something together. And if it doesn't work out, I was trembling, every instinct screaming at me to run while I still could. Then, you'll have financial security, your mother will have the best medical care available, and you'll have the degree you should have finished years ago. I'll pay for you to complete it while you work. No matter what happens between us personally, I'll ensure you land on your feet. You have my word. His word. As if that meant something absolute, inviolable. And the terrifying thing was that I believed him. Believed that Dante Andretti, whoever he really was, whatever he really did, would keep his promises to me even if everything else fell apart. I need one more day, I said. To tell my mom, to process everything, to take it. He moved toward me again, his hand cupping my jaw in that now familiar gesture. But Emma, while you're thinking, remember that you're not just choosing a job or security. You're choosing whether to stop carrying the world alone, whether to let someone strong enough handle the weight beside you, whether to see what we could become together. This time he did kiss me, but not on the lips. His mouth brushed my forehead, tender and possessive, and full of restrained hunger that made my knees weak. Marco will take you home, he said softly. Sleep well, Mia cara. Dream of possibilities instead of limitations. The ride home passed in a blur. I was hyper-aware of every place he'd touched me, every word he'd said, the weight of the decision pressing down on me like physical force. When I climbed the stairs to our apartment, I found Mom awake, waiting with tea and hope in her eyes. How did it go? She asked. I looked at her, really looked at her, at the oxygen tank that kept her alive, at the exhaustion etched into her face, at the pride and love that shone through despite everything. She'd given up her own dreams to raise me alone, had worked 3 jobs before the cancer, had never once complained about the hand life had dealt her. What kind of daughter would I be if I refused the chance to give her comfort in whatever time she had left? It went well, I said, hugging her tight, really well. Mom, I think our lives are about to change. She held me close, and I felt her tears against my neck. Happy tears. Relieved tears. The tears of a mother who'd watched her daughter struggle for too long. You deserve this, sweetheart, she whispered. Whatever it is, you deserve it. I pulled out my phone after she'd gone to bed, my fingers hovering over Dante's number. One text would change everything, would set me on a path I couldn't predict, couldn't control. But wasn't that what life was anyway? A series of impossible choices and blind faith? Me, I accept. The job, the apartment, all of it. When do I start? His response came within seconds. Dante, Monday. I'll have everything arranged. Pack what matters. Everything else, I'll provide. Emma, you won't regret this. I swear it. Dante. And cara mia, thank you for trusting me. I know what that cost you. I won't waste it. I set down my phone and looked out the window at the black SUV still parked across the street, at the city lights stretching endlessly into the dark, at the life I was about to leave behind. Fear and excitement warred in my chest, but underneath both was something else entirely. Hope. For the first time in 3 years, I had hope. Even if it came wrapped in danger and dark eyes and the possessive promise of a man who'd decided I was his to protect. Monday morning arrived with the kind of surreal clarity that comes after making irrevocable decisions. I woke up in my cramped bedroom for what I knew would be one of the last times. The sounds of the city already filtering through the thin walls, sirens, garbage trucks, the couple downstairs arguing in Spanish. Mom was already awake when I emerged, her oxygen tank hissing softly as she sat at our tiny kitchen table with tea, and that expression mothers get when they know everything is about to change. The movers will be here at 10, I said, pouring myself coffee that tasted like burnt hope. Dante arranged everything. They'll pack, transport, unpack. We just need to supervise. Dante? She smiled, testing the name. You've mentioned him a lot since that dinner. Should I be worried? Yes, I thought. You should be terrified that your daughter has entangled herself with a man who owns restaurants and controls buildings and has security teams that operate like military units. He's intense, I said instead. But he keeps his promises, Mom. The apartment he's arranged is in a building with medical staff on call. There's a pulmonologist who specializes in your condition ready to see you tomorrow. Everything will be easier. She reached across the table, taking my hand with her thin, cool fingers. And what about you? Will things be easier for you? I thought about Dante's dark eyes and possessive touch, about the way he'd said mine, like it was both a threat and a promise, about the pull between us that felt like gravity, inevitable and dangerous. I don't know, I admitted. But Mom, I'm tired of hard, even if easier comes with complications. At least it's different complications. The movers arrived precisely at 10, a team of 6 men who moved with military efficiency, packing our meager belongings with a care that seemed excessive for our second-hand furniture and worn clothes. I recognized the discretion in how they handled everything, how they didn't comment on the water-stained walls or the mold in the corners, or the obvious poverty that had defined our existence. Marco appeared at 11, immaculate as always in his dark suit. Miss Clark, Mrs. Clark, Mr. Andretti has asked me to ensure your transition is smooth. The apartment is ready, and he's arranged for a nurse to help settle Mrs. Clark comfortably. He thinks of everything, Mom said, and I couldn't tell if she was impressed or concerned. He does, Marco agreed, and something in his tone made it clear this was both admirable and terrifying. The new apartment was in a building that made our old place look like a storage unit. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a tree-lined street, hardwood floors gleamed under tasteful lighting, and the furniture was the kind you saw in magazines but never touched, comfortable and expensive and carefully chosen. Mom's bedroom had a hospital-grade bed that could adjust to any position, an oxygen system that was whisper-quiet compared to our old tank, and a call button connected directly to the building's medical staff. She cried when she saw it, and I held her while she sobbed out 3 years of exhaustion and fear and relief. My bedroom was smaller, but still larger than our entire old living room, with a desk already set up with a state-of-the-art computer system. On the desk was a note in bold, masculine handwriting. For the brilliant mind that's been wasted on delivery routes. Your first assignment starts tomorrow. Tonight rest. You've earned it. I traced the letters with my finger, my chest tight with emotions I couldn't name. He'd thought of everything, my mother's medical needs, my professional requirements, even the small details like my favorite tea in the kitchen cabinet and books I'd mentioned once stacked on the nightstand. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like being seen, truly seen, for the first time in my life. My phone buzzed. Dante. Are you settled? Me. Yes, it's overwhelming. In a good way, I think. Dante. Good. I want to see you tonight, but I won't push. You need time to adjust. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., my office. Marco will drive you. We'll discuss your role, meet your team. Me. And after work? The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I could picture him on the other end, choosing his words carefully. Dante. After work, I take you to dinner. Not business, just us, if you want. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was the line, the moment where professional became personal, where I acknowledged that this was about more than a job. Me. I want. Dante. Then it's a date. Cara mia, sleep well. Dream of me. I did dream of him that night. Dark eyes and possessive touches, and the feeling of being consumed by something larger than myself. I woke up tangled in sheets that smelled new and expensive, my heart racing with anticipation and terror in equal measure. The office building gleamed in the morning sun, all glass and steel and power. Marco escorted me to the top floor where my team waited, 15 people ranging from fresh graduates to seasoned professionals, all of them looking at me with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. Dante stood at the head of the conference room, commanding and perfect in a charcoal suit. His eyes found mine immediately, and the intensity in them made my breath catch. Everyone, this is Emma Clark, our new Director of Security Systems. Emma comes to us with exceptional skills and my complete confidence. I expect you to give her the same respect you'd give me. His voice carried absolute authority, brooking no argument. Emma, they're yours to lead. Show them what you can do. The morning passed in a blur of introductions, system assessments, and the realization that I actually knew what I was doing. My team was skilled but had been operating without clear direction, and within 2 hours I'd identified 3 major security vulnerabilities and outlined solutions that made the senior developers look at me with new respect rather than doubt. Dante appeared at lunch, his hand finding the small of my back in that possessive gesture I was beginning to crave. Walk with me. We took the elevator to the rooftop garden, a private space where the city spread below us like a kingdom. Other employees gave us wide berth, their deference making it clear that Dante's presence commanded absolute respect. You're brilliant, he said without preamble. Watching you work this morning, seeing how quickly you assessed and solved problems that have plagued us for months. Emma, you belong here. Not because I want you here, but because you've earned it. It feels surreal, I admitted, leaning against the railing. The height should have terrified me, but with Dante beside me, solid and protective, I felt safe. Yesterday I was delivering food. Today I'm directing a team of 15 and making decisions that affect your entire operation. Yesterday you were wasting yourself on a job beneath you. Today you're becoming who you were always meant to be. He moved closer, his shoulder brushing mine. How does it feel? Terrifying. Exhilarating. Like I'm finally breathing after being underwater for 3 years. I turned to look at him, finding his dark eyes already fixed on my face. Thank you for seeing something in me worth investing in. Emma. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb tracing my cheekbone. I didn't invest in potential. I invested in you, exactly as you are, brilliant and stubborn, and so determined to carry everything alone that you forgot what it feels like to share the weight. Is that what this is? Sharing? That's exactly what this is. His voice dropped lower, more intimate despite the open air. You carry your professional responsibilities. I handle the security, the logistics, the protection. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone. And tonight? My heart hammered against my ribs. What are we sharing tonight? His smile was slow, dangerous, full of promise. Tonight we explore what this is between us. No more pretending it's just professional, no more walls, just Dante and Emma, seeing where this pull leads us. He picked me up himself that evening, driving a car that probably cost more than most houses, sleek and powerful, and utterly him. We didn't go to a restaurant. Instead, he drove us to a private estate outside the city, a sprawling property with gardens that glowed under carefully placed lights. "This is mine," he said as we walked through the grounds. "My refuge from the city, from business, from everything that demands pieces of me I can't always give. You're sharing it with me." It wasn't a question. "I'm sharing everything with you." He stopped walking, turning to face me under a pergola wrapped in flowering vines. "Emma, I need you to understand something. What I feel for you, it's not gentle or easy or convenient. It's consuming and possessive and probably unhealthy by normal standards." "I'm not normal standards," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "No, you're not." His hands framed my face, his touch reverent. "You're extraordinary, and I'm going to spend every day proving to you that this, us, isn't about control or obligation. It's about choosing each other, every single day, despite all the complications." "Dante." He kissed me then, finally, and it was everything I'd imagined and nothing I could have prepared for. His lips were firm and demanding, his hands holding me like I was precious and breakable, and infinitely valuable. I melted into him, my hands clutching his shoulders, my body pressing close as 3 years of loneliness and isolation and desperate exhaustion poured out of me. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered. "Not for anything physical unless you want it. Just stay. Let me hold you. Let me prove that you're not alone anymore." I should have been cautious, should have maintained boundaries, kept things professional, protected my heart, but standing there in his arms, feeling truly safe for the first time in forever, I realized I was already his. Had been since that first night in his penthouse, maybe. The only question was whether I'd admit it. "Yes," I breathed. "I'll stay." 3 months later, I stood in Dante's home office, our home office now, reviewing security reports while he handled business calls in rapid Italian. Mom was thriving under Dr. Morrison's care, her breathing easier, her color better. My team had successfully repelled 2 cyber attacks and streamlined operations across all of Dante's legitimate businesses. And every night, I fell asleep in Dante's arms, his possessive hold a promise of protection I'd stopped questioning. "Cara mia," he said, ending his call and pulling me into his lap. "You're frowning at those reports, just thinking about how much has changed." I relaxed against his chest, his heartbeat steady under my ear. "How different my life is now. Better?" His lips brushed my temple. "So much better." I turned to face him, my hand cupping his jaw. "You terrified me, you know, that first night. The way you looked at me like you decided I was yours before I had any say in it." "I had decided," he admitted without shame. "The moment you fixed my systems, the moment you challenged me instead of cowering, I knew. You were mine to protect, mine to cherish, mine to love." That should sound insane, but it doesn't. Not anymore. His smile was soft, genuine. Nothing like the dangerous predator I'd first met. "Because you feel it too, this connection between us, this certainty that we were meant to find each other." He was right. Somewhere between that first terrifying encounter and this moment of perfect peace, I'd stopped fighting the inevitable, had accepted that Dante Andretti, powerful and dangerous and fiercely protective, was mine as much as I was his. "I love you," I said. The words falling easily now, though they'd taken weeks to voice initially. "Even though you're overwhelming and possessive, and sometimes completely unreasonable, I love you," he returned, his voice rough with emotion. My brilliant, stubborn Emma, who walks into danger to fix broken things, and somehow fixed me in the process. Outside the windows, the city glittered with infinite possibilities. Inside, wrapped in the arms of a man who'd seen me when I was invisible, I'd finally found home, not in a place, but in the fierce, complicated, absolutely certain love of someone who'd decided I was worth protecting. Worth every